I've done this before, but I want to do it again today, and that is talking about the 2025 Canadian federal election without reference to polling. Obviously, if we look at the polling today, Pierre Poilievre of the Conservatives are simply going to win. They have 16% leads in some of the polls, anywhere from 8% to 16%. It's a complete walkover for the Conservatives. But I think that it just leads to lazy thinking. If we just look at the polling number and say, oh, the Conservatives are higher, they're going to win the election, or the NDP is higher in this provincial election, they're going to win. What you really want to focus on is the narratives of the election. What are people talking about way ahead of the election? Because that can even be more telling of who's likely to win. Because obviously, when the federal election gets called, like every election, the poll's going to tighten up because people get it in their minds that, oh, I have to be much more careful with who I'm going to vote for. No, now I have to reconsider, even though their gut instinct is probably to vote for the party that they know is not going to screw anything up, and that's the Conservatives these days. But as soon as the election's called, a bunch of people are going to start reconsidering that the Liberals or the NDP can win their votes, even though, like, on policy issues, obviously they've only been terrible. But right now, in terms of the narrative of this next election, you can tell who's going to win based on who everyone is going to talk about. And one rule of thumb, one of the most important rules of thumb, is that in an election, if you're talking about the opposition leader, that's probably going to be the next Prime Minister of Canada. How many elections do we have where we just talk about the person who is not the incumbent and that person ends up losing? It's extremely rare, and unless they have a lot of character flaws that people didn't know about that you needed to talk about in order to bring it to light, usually if you're talking about the opposition leader, it's because you know that they're clearly in the lead. And this is what the NDP, what the Liberals, and obviously what the PPC is doing these days, is that they won't shut up about Pierre Poilievre and just the Conservatives in general. And it's so self-defeating. And I understand the idea. Like, I'm a conservative, so I do talk like I'm trying to help the Liberals, but it's just from the strategic point of view what you should be doing. But from the Liberal perspective, by continually talking about the opposition leader, you're just giving him name recognition. You're just making him seem like a real contender for the prime ministership, and but you're moving him up in people's rankings of who they might vote for when they might have been potentially default Liberal or NDP voters today, but they keep hearing about this Pierre Poilievre guy, so he can't be all that bad, or at least he's a deeply important person. Whereas if you stop talking about him, they might fade into the background. Nobody cares. That's what happened to Aaron O'Toole. Nobody talked about him. Nobody cared who Aaron O'Toole was. So once the election rolled around, the few smear ads against Aaron O'Toole worked really well because people didn't really know anything about him. So they're just going to probably take the first commercial they see about him at face value because, well, no one really wants to go look up who Aaron O'Toole is. He was really boring. So if the unions are going to say he hates labor or whatever, and the Liberals are going to say he's a crazy gun person or whatever, they'll believe it even though he threw gun owners under the bus. That was the disadvantage of not being talked about for Aaron O'Toole. But you can't do the same thing to Pierre Poilievre because he has defined himself. And as the Liberals keep talking about him, they keep making him more interesting and keep raising his profile, keep making more people follow him on social media, and keep making more people think, well, this guy could be a prime minister. This is the problem between the 2011 Conservative Party advertising and the 2015 Conservative Party advertising. The brilliant nature of the 2011 Conservative Party advertising was the whole Mike Ignatieff just visiting ads. The great thing about that is it never made you think for a second that Mike Ignatieff could actually be prime minister. It made you think he's going to lose, he's going to go down to a resounding defeat, and he's going to go back to the U.S. That was a great ad because it never for once made you think that Michael Ignatieff was prime minister material. Now, the 2015 ad, the Justin Trudeau's Just Not Ready ads that the Harper campaign was running, were horrible. And it was for the reason that ad, even if it concludes at the end that he's just not ready to be prime minister, you've effectively said, well, at some point he's going to be ready. So why not vote for him now? He'll grow into it. The subtle implications of the ad are, it's not actually that bad to vote for Justin Trudeau. We just don't think he's quite ready. The Conservatives, even though people mocked them for the ads about Justin Trudeau basically being this very I don't know, soft, unserious, almost Ken-like character, they should have stuck to that. Even though people mocked them, it's better just to mock your opponent rather than seriously present them as an option for prime minister. It's foolish. And I'll just bring up some of the Liberal posts because the Liberals are replicating the Conservative mistakes from 2015. When they're comparing Conservatives, they're saying, Pierre Poilievre and his Conservatives are working hard to bring American-style far-right politics to Canada. These tactics are reckless and irresponsible. He's not working worth the risk. And they're comparing people like Michael Cooper to like Ron DeSantis, and they were comparing other politicians to Lauren Boebert and Ted Cruz and Donald Trump and whatnot. And the problem with comparing them to these people is that those are successful politicians. Ron DeSantis is incredibly successful in Florida, and regardless of what you think about Donald Trump, the man was president. Like you're comparing the Conservatives to people who are presidential material for people who are like governors and senators. Don't do that. It's a stupid thing to do. And as much as I think that Lauren Boebert and certain Republicans are clowns because of their poor behavior, don't compare people to successful politicians. Compare them to unsuccessful politicians. That's a far smarter thing to do. If anything, and I'm not trying to be rude, I'd compare Pierre Poilievre. Like, I like Pierre Poilievre, but if I was a liberal or an NDP strategist, I'd start comparing them to Maxime Bernier. Hey, you guys didn't like Maxime Bernier the last two elections, so why would you vote for Pierre? He's just like Maxime Bernier. A stupid point to make. It's inaccurate, but it would actually maybe be slightly effective. But comparing them to successful American politicians, as many Canadians as there are out there who like to believe that Canada's best quality is not being America, as many as there people are out there, I don't think that many people are just going to see that you're comparing them to American politicians. No, I hate America. They must be terrible, because they see that you're really just comparing them to successful politicians. Even if they don't like these politicians, they're thinking, well, the liberals seem to scare these people because they can actually win. But it doesn't actually say anything bad about them. It's just saying that they're far right, which is a word that's been so undermined in its meaning that nobody really reacts to it anymore. Anyways, another one. The Apple video from Pierre Poilievre was brilliant. I actually almost just want to play the start of it again because I have it saved here. But the liberals won't stop talking about it. But it's this video right here.
On the topic, I mean, in terms of your sort of strategy currently, you're obviously taking the populist pathway.
What does that mean?
Well,
obviously I don't need to play that anymore. You all kind of recognize the video. At least I've probably jogged your memory. Also, playing that video gave me a fantastic opportunity to have a sip of coffee. But the liberals will not shut up about this video. I don't know why. It's a stupid thing to do, but it all started off with this clip, this video right here that they re-edited of Pierre Poilievre saying, "Oh, I never really talk about left or right," and then they edit in 4 times where Pierre Poilievre has referenced the far left in Canada, which doesn't actually prove their point. He just said he doesn't really talk about left and right politics. But the liberals, for some reason, stepped on this rake. That was an incredibly viral clip of Pierre Poilievre, and they thought it was a great idea to amplify it even more by trying to cherry pick a couple things that might not be 100% accurate in the video. And they didn't stop there. They also played this other one where they're talking about how conservative math is by slashing revenue or money from the federal budget, that we're saving money. And then they go down this rabbit hole of they're cutting services, so you're going to have to spend more or whatever. Just conspiratorial nonsense from the liberals that the Conservatives are going to cut your grandmother's Social Security and they're going to stop roads from being built, rather than cutting worthless HR and DEI stuff in government. The biggest growth in government under the liberals has been HR, just people filing paperwork that nobody's ever going to read in their entire lives, but they get 6 figures a year to do it. That's what the Conservatives are proposing to cut. And by continuing to amplify this viral video from Pierre Poilievre, they're only hurting themselves, because it gives the Conservatives fantastic opportunities to keep resharing their clip because it continues to be relevant. But it doesn't just stop there. The liberals also keep talking about Pierre Poilievre in the cutting of Canadian support for Canadians. The problem is that too many Canadians right now are very well aware that the federal budget is bloated, that the deficit spending is toxic for the Canadian economy, and inflation is being made in Ottawa. Inflation isn't being made by grocery giants. They can bring in grocery CEOs all day long, Galen Weston, to yell at him and say he's ripping off Canadians. No Canadian actually believes that the grocery stores are printing money and causing inflation to increase. Yet the liberals keep talking about it, thinking that somehow they're going to convince you, if the Conservatives get in, they're just going to cut like every single thing that you hold dear in the Canadian government. They're going to cut the RCMP. They're going to get rid of the Canadian Armed Forces. They're going to get rid of Social Security and healthcare. Obviously, that's not true. The Conservatives aren't just anti-spending; they're anti-deficit spending and spending on nonsense. Nobody, but the Liberals, even though they can call Conservatives conspiratorial, every single election, the Liberals, as well as the Liberals in the media, always pretend like there's even a chance that the Conservatives are going to cut like vital services in Canada. They're not going to do it, but that's just their line of thinking. But again, it's a terrible marketing for them, not only because they won't stop talking about Pierre Poilievre and raising his profile, but they keep bringing attention to issues that the Conservatives are actually doing very well on. Government spending cuts are actually fairly popular in Canada right now. People, the top issues in the country, I think I saw an Angus Reid poll, it's inflation, it's jobs, and it's the economy in general. The Conservatives have anywhere from a 10 to 24 point lead on those issues over Justin Trudeau. I saw it was an Abacus data poll where like Justin Trudeau, of course, leads a little bit on environment and childcare stuff. And on taxes, Pierre Poilievre's on like a plus 24 lead over Trudeau. They should be shutting up about these spending issues because everyone has actually, frankly, gotten sick of the amount of waste in government. Anyways, but the funniest example of the Liberals not being able to stop talking about Pierre Poilievre is Mark Garrettson cutting this awful video where he effectively whines about Pierre Poilievre showing up to question period or just sort of showing up to Parliament. There's some parliamentary business going on in the House chamber. And Pierre Poilievre shows up, and while Mark Garrettson is asking a completely foolish question about the environment or the economy, it was dumb. It was a dumb Mark Garrettson question that Pierre Poilievre starts heckling him. And Mark Garrettson makes this however long video, this 2-minute and 20-second video, like crying about the fact that Pierre Poilievre showed up and started heckling him. If anything, that made Pierre Poilievre seem cool. He's the leader of the opposition. He doesn't have to show up, yet he is cool enough to show up to the House chamber just for the express purpose of making fun of Mark Garrettson, the sweaty water buffalo of Parliament. Mark Garrettson is trying so desperately to get into Trudeau's cabinet. He will do anything. He will lick anyone's shoes clean to make sure he can secure even the lowest cabinet position ever. The man is and probably going to lose his seat. I think I saw the latest projections. I think it's like tied 36-36 in the 338 projections in Kingston and the Islands, with the Conservatives being slightly favored. In a riding where I believe his dad used to hold a riding, and he used to be the mayor of Kingston. That's how much everyone's annoyed with Mark Garrettson. The last election, I think he won with like 55% of the vote. It is a walkover riding that he potentially can lose. No, yeah, like Mark Garrettson could lose Kingston and the Islands simply because he is so annoying. At one point, he even implied that he wanted to fight Kevin Vaughn for disagreeing with him on Chinese interference. He's a nut, but whatever. But this is the Liberal strategy. Just keep talking about Pierre Poilievre, and hopefully everyone hates his guts. They don't understand that talking about the opposition leader is so stupid. The opposition leader often doesn't have more than 50% name recognition before the federal election starts. And right now, I guarantee Pierre Poilievre is probably around 70 or 80% name recognition. He was already a popular politician before he became leader, and now he's effectively been made ascendant for the prime ministership because Justin Trudeau won't stop talking about the possibility of Pierre Poilievre being the prime minister. I say Trudeau bias being the Liberal Party in general. But do not doubt that every single piece of strategy is approved by Justin Trudeau. The man has his hands on everything. That's why the current Liberal Party polling at 24 to 27% always tracks extremely closely with Justin Trudeau's approval rating, because people do not see a difference between the Liberal Party and the Canadian government and Justin Trudeau personally. They know everything that happens is because of Justin Trudeau. He tells ministers what to do, and they carry it out to the T, or they're fired. Anyways, I want to kind of slowly start ending this video off by talking about the People's Party of Canada. Because if there's a party that they should just call themselves the Miss Opportunity Party. Again, I'm a conservative. I support the Conservatives. But I even voted once for the PPC because I just didn't like Aaron O'Toole very much. And frankly, he's being a bit of a turd to me and the National Telegraph behind the scenes. But whatever. So I've been friendly to them. I've even given them a little bit of advice here and there on if they want to grow their party. And we've written articles about them. We've been perfectly nice, just like all other Canadian independent media has been perfectly nice to the PPC. The PPC is not growing because they do not seem to want to grow. They do not do. I literally was in a Twitter space at some point back when Twitter was still called Twitter. where I was talking to PPC organizers, and they were all getting mad at me because I said that the PPC didn't have the ability to grow. And at one point, while they were yelling at me, I said, "Have you ever door knocked in your life?" And they said, "I've never door knocked because I've never had my mind changed at a door." And it's like, oh goodness, you sweet summer child, please just go out and door knock for a campaign and learn what people sound like at the door. The PPC does not grow because they think that the average person talks and thinks the way that the average person on social media does. Not that many people talk about politics on social media, and even fewer talk about it in real life. Go to someone's door and talk to them about politics, and you will realize that politics is an issue that, for most people, makes them very tight and uncomfortable. Rural areas are better. People are much more friendly. They actually appreciate it when you come to their door, which is a great reason to door knock in rural areas. But they'll talk to you a little bit. But most people, like in my riding of Calgary Signal Hill, I do a lot of door knocking around here. People get a little bit tight when you start talking about politics because it's one of those ridings where there's not that many hot button political issues. It's a kind of a conservative default riding. And because of that, I think a lot of people actually kind of fall out of practice about talking about politics. So when you start talking to them about it, they get a little bit tight and they don't really want to talk about it because it feels like uncomfortable. Like, well, are we supposed to be doing this? Or do we sound conspiratorial? All stuff like this. So the PPC needs to understand what an average person thinks. And the other reason the PPC is not growing is because they never talk about Justin Trudeau. Like, obviously they do. But my point is that the main focus of every drive that the PPC does is to talk about how they're purer than the Conservatives. And are they purer than the Conservatives? Probably. Because they are not trying to win elections. Obviously, you can be the purest party ever if you don't actually care about winning an election. You just care about posting on social media about how you're cooler than the other guys. But again, that Apple video that the Liberals won't stop talking about, that was fantastic media for Pierre Poilievre, just dunking on a Liberal journalist who did not do any fact checking on his questions, did not bring out any evidence that Pierre Poilievre's like Donald Trump or that he's using populist language and stuff like that. The PPC, Greg Wycliffe, tried to do a parody video of this, that the PPC is the real conservative party that will put Canada first, and then tried to do this like parody version, or someone said it's like, oh, it's satire. It's parody. It's because the point is stupid. Satire is subtle and clever. This was not clever. It's parody. But like, they don't realize how cringy this is, that they're constantly like going after Pierre Poilievre and saying he's terrible and he's not a real conservative at the same time that they keep copying him. But the thing is that like, trying to parody the Apple video is the most self-defeating thing you can possibly do. The PPC is showing that its brand does not exist without being able to criticize the Conservative Party. If you're trying to succeed as the PPC, one, door knock more, get more people signed up for memberships, maintain your EDAs, because PPC EDAs keep getting deregistered because they don't actually file their financial paperwork at the end of the year. And you should be criticizing Justin Trudeau. And I'm not saying this like, join with the Conservatives to take down Justin Trudeau. I'm not saying that you have to be part of the team and start wearing Conservative badges. My point is that the reason why small parties around the world tend to grow is because they prove that they are more competent at governing than the current government. If you only criticize the opposition and you never prove why you do a better job as Justin Trudeau, people will just ignore you. It's so down the rabbit hole for a small party to be criticizing the opposition party because they're not doing a good enough job. Are you a like an actual party, or are you just a PAC who is trying to push the Conservative Party to the right? If they just came out and said, we're an influence organization that's trying to make the Conservative Party more conservative, and we're not really trying to win any elections, we might try and steal some votes here and there to try and pressure them to be more like us. But at the end of the day, if they're trying to be a real party, that their strategy is not working. They do not connect with the average person because the average person is not looking at some purity test sheet of how great you are on all the policies that you're not actually marketing at the doors. That's just not how it works whatsoever. The PPC needs to grow up and actually become a party for more than just people who are perpetually online. And as someone who is terminally online myself, the messaging is too aggressive. It's too in your face. It's trying to show you why. Like, it's a party for guys who only dress in plaid jackets. That's the problem. That's what people think of the party. I'm not trying to be derogatory. That's what people imagine in their heads when they say, name a PPC politician. They think of a guy in a big, bulky plaid jacket who's yelling about something and has a very scraggly beard. I even voted for them in 21. That the problem is, though, the branding is everything, and they do not care about their branding. Anyways, that should be it for me today. I have the links to my legal fund in the description of this video. My lawyer actually just questioned the guy suing me today. Hopefully it went well. I believe it went well. It's a super simplistic case that we're obviously in the right in. So if you can chip in a few dollars there, it really helps me out. My lawyers cost a few $100s an hour. So obviously $5 here and there does help me out, pay for my costs. I also have the TNT email list in the description of this video if you want to sign up and be able to get TNT materials in your inbox, our articles and our videos, so you don't have to rely on algorithms on YouTube or Twitter or Facebook to be able to show us our content. And other than that, you can also follow me on X in the description of this video, or Twitter. I still just prefer calling it Twitter, but I have the link to my account in the description. If you want to follow me there, that'd be fantastic. And other than that, I hope everyone has a fantastic day.